Nick Darr here, getting ready to shoot another episode of Business Over Brew, which wouldn't be possible if not for our great sponsors at Roberts Motors. You know the Roberts Motors name, they've been around since 1949. Definitely a name that means quality. We certainly appreciate their support of not only this show, but all they do for the community. You talk about a local business that gets it in terms of supporting great community causes and just being involved in the community. The guys at Roberts Motors, Sam, John, the rest of the crew there, they really understand what it means to be a good business citizen in the community, and they've done that for a lot of years. If you're in the market for a vehicle, you know the car industry has been a little upside down lately in terms of inventory. They're starting to get more and more vehicles on the lot. Starting to see some new Broncos out there, so go check that out. A little more pre-owned inventory as well. They're certainly always in the market to give you a great deal if you're looking to sell your vehicle as well. Now's a great time to do that. And maybe something we don't talk about enough is just a really great top-notch service center at Roberts Motors. If you need work done to your car, you need tires, oil change, any kind of service work, Roberts Motors is really a terrific place to consider. And they would just appreciate the opportunity to do business with you, whether it's buying a vehicle, buying your vehicle from you, or getting some work done to your vehicle. Check out Roberts Motors on Albee Street in Alton or at robertsmotors.com. All right, here we go. I just got loud. Welcome to another edition of Business Over a Brew, where we talk business with local business people, influential leaders in the business community. Pleased to be joined on this episode by Keith Warfield with Tech River Consulting. Keith, thanks for coming on the show.
No problem. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Tell us a little bit. First of all, we'll just start with tell us about Tech River and how it got started and what you guys do.
So Tech River, we just started this year, so perfect year to start a new business during a pandemic. And but really was just kind of birthed out of years of doing IT work. Did a lot of it on the side. Always had a full-time job, and actually to really kind of wind back the tape all the way. Took classes in college for computers. Once it became an assignment, I was like, I really don't know that I like working with computers when I have deadlines and it was kind of more fun. And so I actually switched to graphic design courses. So took graphic design, web design, started by building a business that did websites for people in graphic design. So worked with a lot of small businesses, did a lot of logos, a lot of website design. And as they found out what my skill set was, that would ultimately kind of morph into me, end up being more their IT person than their graphic designer. So I've had a small business on the side for about 13 years. And so just slowly that kind of grew and grew and grew and took over my day-to-day to the point where I was able to step away from my full-time job. Started Tech River with a couple partners, and just it's really taken off and grown from there. Been a great thing.
Patrick King, one of those partners, Will Miller too. Patrick's been on the show before, and I know those guys, I think it kind of started because they were just really impressed by the work you had done for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So connected with them. They had a new building in Alton and came in. We actually built out their whole network infrastructure and took care of the new building at the bank. And after that work was done, still kind of just maintained a friendship with them. We'd talk occasionally. And so Will would joke with me. And a couple times he had said, hey, if it ever doesn't work out wherever you're at or something, just show up and we'll figure it out. And so his big joke now he likes to say is, hey, like I challenged Keith, just show up one day, and he did. And there's a little bit more to it than that, but kind of. So in a nutshell, I kind of saw the potential at my current job. It looked like my position was kind of coming to a close, and I talked with the owners there. So, and at the same time had enough side work lined up with my side jobs. One of my clients, he actually had me, I was backlogged about 2 months with him. So I was looking at it going, well, I could step away, and actually for 2 months, if I don't find another job, I can stay busy. Mm-hmm. So it seemed like a real palatable time to do that. So big jump, scary jump, especially with a wife and 6 kids. And so that's where Patrick and Will kind of fit in. We started talking, and they just said, well, hey, like, what's coming along for the journey? We'd love to be a part of an IT company. And so we started talking about what that would look like, what a partnership would look like, and just went from there. So I left my job for a few months. I did things on my own while we kind of got all the pieces of the puzzle in place. And then in March we launched and hit the ground running. And there was ups and downs, a little bit of slow time in the beginning, but that helps you get your company, kind of structure put in place, off on the right foot. And really for the last couple of months, it's been exactly what we'd hoped it'd be. Really, it's growing. We now have a person who's helping full time on staff getting the jobs done, and not, we're scheduling a week to 2 weeks out. So not ideal for customers, but ideal for us. That allowed us to bring the employee on, and really just our aggressiveness with going after, as we saw a niche in the market. There's no shortage of trade people. Well, I guess that's not true. There is a shortage of trade people, but there's no shortage of companies out there to do the work. When you fit in their schedule, how you fit in their schedule, and then where you fit under their pyramid of how they take care of customers is what varies. And so what we started seeing a trend in, especially IT and other trade work, was that the bigger companies tend to get priority. They get preference, they get priority because they have the bigger jobs they have. And so we just have a little bit different vantage point on that, where we look at it that I would love to do all of your small to medium-sized business work because you may not have the big jobs, but I want to build a relationship. So our goal is to get in with these people to actually know our clients, know our customers, help them out, and then be in a situation where we can do their work for them, fair pricing, but also give them preferential treatment where, hey, if you call, we're going to answer the phone. We may not be able to get out there the same day, but people don't, I don't think people always expect you to get out there the same day, right? Sometimes it's okay if you don't get there that day, but they do want the person that's in the line to pick up the phone and say, hey, we're here. We heard your concern. We don't have somebody today, but we will get out there tomorrow. And what we hear time and time again, we'll talk with new customers and they'll say, well, the previous company just wasn't responsive. And I always ask them to define that. I'll say, what do you mean by responsive? Do you mean that they couldn't get out to you within 2 to 3 days, or do you mean that they just didn't answer your calls, didn't answer your emails, didn't answer your text? Inevitably, like 90% of the time, the answer is, hey, they don't answer our calls. We'll email them. We hear nothing back. And it's not even an emergency. It's just hey, can you get us on that? And nothing. So that's been our structures. We're going to try to give people good customer service, get back to what business is about, good customer service. I'm not afraid to answer the call, even if I know I can't get to that person that day. I'm going to pick it up, be a voice on the end of the line and say, hey, can't do it today, can't do it tomorrow, but we got you. We're going to take care of you. So that's been the model. That's what we're aggressively going after, just being present, building relationship, looking more as business partnerships instead of just clients.
You get frustrated as a consumer sometimes because you think, I understand you can't do the work, but it's not hard to communicate that you can't do the work, or that it's going to be a while, or whatever. So it sounds like that's an area where you guys are focusing attention on. Focusing
big time. And I think it really, for me, it just comes up to discipline and leadership, right? Like, I get it. I've been that person on the other side of the phone where you don't want to answer it because you can't give the person the answer they want. And that's where it's just, you got to put your, what do they call it, your big boy shoes? Your
big boy pants.
Your big boy pants.
Shoes too, I guess.
Yeah, put your big boy shoes on, put your big boy pants, and just answer the phone and communicate with people. You're not always going to have the answer they want. That's okay. I think sometimes we're so afraid that because we don't have the answer they want, we're missing that opportunity because in all actuality, they're okay if we don't have the answer they want. They just want an answer. They want a real person on the phone. They don't want another automated voice system answering that, and those are great. Automated, we put in IP phones. Automated attendants are great if you can pick it up and you can dial a number and still get to a physical person. Right. But people want to talk to people. Right. You got all this technology, Facebook, social media, all these things. You can sit behind keyboards and communicate all day. But at the end of the day, I think your average, especially your average business owner who tends to be aggressive, a go-getter, entrepreneur, especially the mom and pop or small to medium business like we are, they just want a real voice, real face on the line that's going to answer and just be honest with them. And so, that's what we're going for.
When you talk about that niche, is that when you guys were selecting that determined mostly by size in terms of number of employees, or how did you go about selecting that?
I think the real selection came from, honestly, I'll give some credit to the last company I worked for. That was their they started a new company. They saw that same niche in the market that, hey, just people aren't getting back with people. People aren't treating, their big one was just people aren't treating people fair. They go out, they take care of them. They're out for that one job and done. And so they would rather make more on that job than treat them fairly, build a relationship and keep that relationship going long term. And so they really carved out a niche in the market where they were being, just fair to people, bending over backwards, building relationships. And so that company, I don't know, it's probably 7 or 8 years old now, but in 7 or 8 years, it went from 2 partners starting it to when I left, there was almost 30 employees. So it just grew exponentially in just a short amount of time, just because it was just that grassroots of taking care of people. That company did very, I shouldn't say this, right? Very little advertising. But they're advertising in the get-go because you're a new company, you're starting up, you're trying, I just got a phone call today from a guy and he said, hey, I'm with such and such and we're putting this out. And I said, man, tell me more about it. And he told me something about it. It's not like a neat little thing. It's just a little, they help some kids with reading, and I don't know. But so I said, hey, I tell you what, new company, not a lot of discretionary funds for advertising right now. And some of my funds are already committed, or I'm in the talks with someone right now to do some advertising at the Big Z. And so
We're in talks.
Yeah, in talks. And we're going to figure this out.
Right.
So, but I told him, I said, hey, but don't forget about me. Like, don't just mark me off. Like, circle back with me next year,
Right.
Because maybe we'll have some funds next year.
Yeah.
And that's the thing where I don't mind having a conversation with talking to people. You get the robocalls so many times, you just get frustrated, and I'm guilty that I'll hang up on them. But this was a genuine. It was local business trying to reach out, trying to help people. I'm all for that. Anything that's going to help local, help people, give them a shot. I think it's good stuff. So
It's amazing, though, to me, as a business owner, we try to give most of the time when we're asked. But I'm somewhat amazed at how many times that individual doesn't circle back with me.
Right.
And doesn't say, hey, you sponsored our golf tournament last year. Do you want to do it again this year? A lot of times I don't get those call backs. It's like,
well, and so funny story. So you don't even know where this phone call went today. So he said, yeah, absolutely. Like, that's no problem. But then his next step in the process was trying to let himself off the hook for following up. In my opinion, so we'll see what happens. But he said, hey, I tell you what, if you give me your email, I'll email you the information. He said, sounds like you're a little bit interested. Why don't I email you the information for this year? Or if you want, I can call you back next year. I said, well, I'll give you my email. Go ahead and send it over. And so to me, that just told me, like, I don't think I'm going to call back from him next year. He's going to send the email over.
You're going to look at it once, and you're probably not going to.
And he probably thought I was feeding him a line of crap, but
Yeah.
I was genuine and like, hey, call me back next year. If it's local and if it's something with Alton, Godfrey, Bethel, like, I'm going to jump in and put my shoulder to the plow, because that's our business is kind of stapled up here, and whatever we can do to help get our name out. And also just create a good camaraderie in the community of like, hey, Tech River's not afraid to put the shoulder to the plow, jump in, help out where needed. That's.
I want to touch on all the services that you provide and what IT entails, because it can mean a lot of different things, I think. But let's back it up a little bit. Just was, computers, is it something you always had an interest in growing up, or when did that come about?
Weird checkered past of a lot of things. I say checkered, it wasn't sketchy, but just multifaceted, I guess. So my grandpa was in the construction industry, so I was around him a lot and kind of had a fascination with just how things were built, how things are put together. That's kind of always how my brain worked. My dad worked for the phone company for years, actually retired from the phone company. He did a lot of work with payphones and the lines from poles, a lot of pole climbing. But from that, my dad also had a kind of fascination with the same way. So, grew up when there wasn't computers, and then you had your original Apples. And so then I remember as the first personal computer started to come out, where you could actually afford one and put one in your house with Windows 3.1 and no internet. And so my dad got one. We had Commodore 64 before that. And I remember my dad would even get us these magazines. Did you ever have a Commodore 64?
I think I had a Tandy.
I
think was what I had. Maybe, I don't know what they made, but that was our first computer. I remember.
Yeah. So like this gigantic box that had like no memory to it whatsoever, just a basic operating system that was similar to DOS. Gigantic floppy drive, the actual 5-inch one, not the the hard floppy disk later.
I miss those.
And and so he would get us these magazines, and in the magazines, I remember like you go through and like, oh, if you want to play a volleyball game with stick figures, and you had no idea what the game looked like, because it's just a magazine. He was like, just type the code from
It'll take you like 17 hours to type in all the code. And then these stick figures will play volleyball for like 3 seconds.
As long as you don't mistype one digit in 10 pages of code. So he's like, just type the next 10 pages of code into a file and you're playing. And so, so me and my brothers would sit there. We'd take turns. Like, one would do a page and the next would do a page. I had 2 older brothers. And so we'd type this in. And then if you messed up, you're going back trying to scan the code to find out where there is. And so, so that was kind of where it started. Commodore 64, we got the first home PC. And my dad was just the type where, they were affordable, but also always looking like, hey, can we make this computer better without having to buy a new one? So we go to computer shows. I used to have them at the Collinsville Convention Center. And we go to computer shows and buy more memory and buy better hard drives. And we were constantly building, flexing our computers, doing different stuff. And so kind of grew up with that just around my dad, which was my fascination. I loved, my dad's a very quiet guy. We'd find things to do together, to spend time together. It's like going to blues games, working on a computer. That was kind of our connection points. And so that was why I think I hit college and I was like, oh, here's this assignment. You have to do this. I was like, well, it's just lost its fun. I'm not doing it with dad. And I'm not. And so I just kind of took a different segue there, ended up coming back and still taking computer courses and a lot of graphic design other classes. They kind of overlap too. But and then not long after that, got into a lot of networking, which is a lot of what we do. A lot of networking as far as like access points, data cabling, building out networks with different VLANs so that people can have the guest network. And big concern right now is Internet of Things, having all these extra devices, your smart TV, especially in a business setting. You want to separate those out and not put them on your main network. So kind of got into a lot of that stuff. But yeah, so just this kind of progression from Commodore 64 to the personal computer, building them all the way fast forward to still doing a lot of the same things. We'll still custom build out. We actually have a client right now that we're getting ready to build a new video management software system for them. So we just ordered all the parts, build them a custom server to drop in for their cameras, and so just everything from that, you name it. We that's why we put consulting in the name, was just because we have, between the services we offer, so everything from data cabling to your basic internet to voice over IP phones to cameras. Also, then there's a lot of things where we get asked by people, hey, do you do this also? And a lot of it, some we do, some we don't. But we know someone who does. A lot of times, there's a lot of people we partner with. We just did a job today, right before we came out here. Actually, we're finishing one up where the company's doing IP phones for them, which we can do. It's one of the things we do. But I'm also not afraid to partner with someone else who does it. So this company is a big IT firm. They work with a lot of IT companies, and they have a lot of large clients. And so in this one, he has the phones he's providing for the customer, and we find this with a lot of IT companies. They don't want to actually pull cable, right? They want to do the IT side of it, the programming side, but they don't want to do the physical side of running the data lines, and so that's what it was for him. So he called me and he said, "Hey, I got the phones from. Will you do this and finish the job out?" So that's what we're doing today. We're partnering with another IT company that they were taking care of the phones for the customer, and that's another area where I think a lot of businesses miss it. Like you look at other people doing the same thing as you as competition, and really. I mean, I guess if you get down to brass tacks, you are competition, but do you have to be?
Right.
I think there's so many times businesses in your same genre can complement what you're doing, and we're missing that opportunity because we write them off as purely competition. When we can look at that, and a lot of times we can partner. I can help in an area. Yeah, we do some of the same things, but I can help you in those areas where you don't do this. But then there may be, if I have a client that wants a 50 or 100 phone install, that's a little bit more than I want to, it's not even more than I want to manage, it's just the install. I might say, hey, you have the manpower to do that. How about we'll take care of the cabling part, you do this. And there's so many areas where we can trade off, get customers taken care of, probably give people a better product because you have more minds involved in it. And I think we miss that a lot. We write that off because we're just afraid of the competition.
I know a big concern right now for a lot of businesses or individuals for that matter is just security when it comes to your computers and your information and ransomware and all those terms. And talk a little bit about what you guys do on that side of things.
Yeah, so security, big one. I usually start out all my conversation with security people with, okay, like let's just be honest and transparent about it, right? Like if Kmart and Target can get hacked, you can too. So like we can do a lot of things and put things in place and identify problems and try to mitigate those. But at the end of the day, there's just a lot of vulnerabilities, and they're constantly changing, especially now in a world where software is updating faster than ever. Even just the updates on your iPhones happen so fast now. And so there's no way to really, like, people that are, even the places that, like a Target, that gets hit, they have so many people full-time. They're just they're monitoring everything to the nth degree, to where your average business doesn't even have log files that they're tracking and looking at to see how many times things are being accessed and things. They're watching this stuff all the time, and they're still getting breached. They're obviously a lot larger target too. However, what we're finding, what I would say, and especially in the last 6 months to a year, what we're finding with a lot of data breaches and a lot of things like that, the biggest threat is your employees, and not current ones maybe, but ones who have moved on. And those credentials that they had for access to your system were not closed out properly. They were left open, exposed. And that has been, there's been several big name companies. One of them is a company that provides access points, switches. They do a lot of networking products. We use them for a lot of our products. And they had a major breach, and it all came from a previous employee when they tracked it all down. So that actually caused us to react to that situation. That company provides what they call a cloud key. We put it in a customer's place. It allows us to manage all of their network equipment from that location, but also manage it remotely, which is a huge advantage because they can call us and say, hey, we want, and there's ways to do it in the past. There's all kinds of different ways to get in the back door with VPNs and VLANs, and but just kind of simplifies all that for the average customer, especially trying to keep costs down. It's a quick way to set it up. And so we had to look at this data breach they had and go, okay, they had an employee who stepped out. It caused a major data breach. We have all these customers that sit on their servers. Is that an issue for them? And I think there was a couple identified. We were able to fix not fix problems, but fix passwords, other things, make sure we caught it ahead of the pass. But then we looked at it and said, okay, could this happen again? How big of a risk is this? As we continue to add customers to this, would we like better control over the security of this? And not that we have better security than this company, but if we only have 50 accounts, 100 accounts, 200 accounts, can we keep better on that than they have millions?
Right.
And so our reaction to that for our customers was we ended up building a server in-house. Now, instead of them having cloud keys on site, all that stuff points back to our main office. We're able to make daily backups of that. If there's a breach, we can get it back up within minutes. And so we just pulled that back in-house and said, okay, I think we can do a little bit better stewardship of this if we have it in-house. And there's other things that you can't, like we just have to, so you pick and choose. But a lot of it's knowing your software, knowing the provider, knowing what the risks are. And as far as like going into the company, the first thing we try to do is identify the obvious, because there's always some big glaring obvious ones, especially when you're dealing with a small to medium-sized business who, and we get it, right? Like your every penny counts. And so you're really trying to just hold things off unless if there's a problem, we're going to fix it. I call it the break fix model, right? So you can be proactive or you can do the break fix model. Most small to medium-sized businesses, they will do the break fix model.
Right.
And it's good because they save money, bad because when things happen, it's bad.
Right. If you weren't backing things up.
Those companies are the easiest one to identify weaknesses because we can get in there and find some pretty quickly. There's a business right down the road here, and we got it there, and we were just like shocked. We're like, holy cow, you have some major issues. There's another museum that we're doing some work for, and they ordered these touchscreens with great intentions so that people can come in and learn more about through the museum, through interacting with this touchscreen. The company did a poor job kind of coaching them up and like, hey, there's going to be some additional software you're going to need. So they just tried to get it going themselves. They ended up just like, okay, well, it's Android is what the touchscreen's built off of. Like, we're just going to go and force you to sign into your Gmail account or to your Google account. So they signed into their Google account. The head of the museum signed into the Google account. Okay, well, it's up. It's working now. We'll throw this stuff up. And then I came in to look at it for them. And because they had gotten a price back on getting everything working, they're like, we can't afford this. Is there anything you can do? I said, well, come take a look at it, see what we can do to help out the community. And we got in there, and like 3 clicks of a button, and I was in the director's email. I was like, I think we found like
this is a problem.
This is an easy one, right? Like this shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So you have your smaller to medium-sized business. A lot of times they have very easy, very inexpensive fixes that are huge security risk, and like they can be fixed in minutes. And so that's the thing I always caution people on. It's like, hey, it's worth it as a small business to spend a little bit of money to make sure you have your glaring errors fixed. And then from there, you can work it out and build it. A lot of it depends on how much you do. So many people do so much stuff in the cloud now. It really comes down to your, especially if you're using Office 365 or Google Suites for everything, it comes down to your passwords, your policies, procedures with that. But it's finding those glaring errors like that that are just hanging out there you want to deal with.
I want to talk coffee with you, but before we do, there's a lot of small business owners that watch the show.
Yeah.
Just how can they get a hold of Tech River Consulting if they want to touch base with you and even just get some peace of mind?
Yeah. TechRiverIT.com is our website. Phone number 618-474-8701. That rings the office. And a lot of times I'll be the one to pick that up. If we don't answer it, we'll get right back with you. Our goal is to get back with everybody within 24 hours. But yeah, the reason we called it consulting, twofold. One is a lot of times we get in and like I said, maybe it doesn't fit all of our areas of expertise, but we can bring in other people to partner with us so that you don't have to reach out to multiple companies to get something done, almost like we can contract it out. The other is too, we'd be happy to come in, sit down with companies, look at what they have existing, and coach them up from there. Our big thing, like I said, we want to build a relationship with customers. So if there's a way that we've had several customers recently where they thought they were just going to have to throw in the towel and start over from scratch. It's like, well, let's look at it. One was a motocross track, and we got out there and we're like, hey, look, actually your equipment's fine.
Right. We
just need to tweak a few things and do this, and then we can get back up going for you. Saved them a ton of money. Another one was another restaurant in Godfrey, and they had a camera system, and they were so frustrated with it, like, just get it out of here, get us a new one. And I was like, okay, well. And so it took a little walking them through. I was like, actually, this is a pretty decent camera system you have. I think we just need to dial it back. Let's step back. Let's make some tweaks to things. And so we're in the process of taking care of that for them right now. And so just helping people where like it doesn't always have to be replaced. Doesn't always have to be a bank breaker. A lot of times we can get in there, take a look at it for people, coach them up, and help get them in the right direction and make it cost effective, affordable. So yeah, reach out to us. We'd love to just have a conversation, even if it's just over lunch. Tell you what we can offer up, and the big thing that I pride our company on, if we can't take care of it for you, I'm happy to help you find somebody who can. So
I can personally vouch for Keith. Unfortunately, a lot of times we've done the break and fix model.
It's very common.
And Keith is fixed. I break, he fixes. So it's worked well. And we hadn't talked in a while, and then got together a couple weeks ago, and you started telling me about this new coffee venture that you've got going. So tell us a little bit about Piasaw Coffee. You got the shirt on today. So
I don't know if we're just extreme entrepreneurs or crazy, but so same partner.
Not a lot of difference there.
Not a lot of difference. My wife will tell you it's crazy. So I'm just kidding, but it does. Starting two businesses in the same year probably wasn't the most thought out process I had, but I have a need to just stay busy. And keep my mind busy.
6 kids. 2 businesses.
We sold our house. We couldn't find another. We looked for a little bit bigger to accommodate the 6 kids, and we wound up in a rental. And when you have your own house, there's no shortage of projects, or you can create your own. Like, hey, let's just redo this room or this bathroom.
Yeah.
And so with a rental, I'm like, my hands are tied. Like I can't do anything. And so it's literally what my wife's told me. She's like, you didn't have projects around the house, so you started a coffee company. I was like, you're probably
That's
right.
kind of how it happened. Right?
So it really is. So I've been roasting coffee for about 3 years. I love coffee. Always have. I mean, there's people that don't like coffee, but most of them probably been ruined by bad coffee experiences.
Right. That's why they did.
So
they didn't try
I'll help you out.
first.
If you've had a bad coffee experience, let me know. We'll get together, and we'll do coffee and business and see how that goes.
Yeah.
So I've been roasting coffee, though, for 3 years, but I've loved coffee my whole life. I started drinking my grandpa when I was a kid, and then in my 20s, I had a friend who lived in Chesterfield. He had a roaster, and his whole thing was he actually had a detached 2-car garage in Chesterfield. He would roast the coffee, and he had a lot of businesses signed up in Chesterfield. And his thing was, I'll roast it, I'll have it delivered to your business within 24 hours of roasting for you to grind and serve to your customers.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how he made his business. Some of the best coffee I ever had was from him. And so fast forward, we kind of lost touch, and he shut the coffee business down. And years later, I'm chasing, like, how do I get a good cup of coffee? And so I bump into this guy. His father-in-law is a missionary in Peru. And so big coffee area.
Right.
And he's riding along with a coffee farmer one day, and he's like, hey, my son-in-law loves coffee. What's the best thing I can use to brew it with? And this is AeroPress, which now you can buy them at Target. Back then, I don't think he worked for the video department at John Hagee Ministries, and now he actually lives in Africa, and he's a missionary over there too. But at the time, I'd had him in as a guest speaker at our church, and so we're just talking. He's like, dude, you got to get this AeroPress. Like, my father-in-law found out about it. You got to try it. So I order one line, I get it. There's nothing to it. I mean, you don't plug anything in. You put the grounds in there, you put hot water in, you press it through. Best cup of coffee I'd had in a while. And so then it just kind of reignited my passion for, like, I'm going to find good coffee. And so I found a brewer, and I tried this coffee, that coffee, and then I'm gonna give a plug to a company that doesn't even know me. But there's a coffee roaster in Belleville called Balance Coffee. And they opened up in Belleville. I heard about them and heard they had a roaster inside. It was fresh roasted coffee. So I stopped in to check them out. I grabbed a bag, date stamped on it. It's like 3 days old. I took it home, and for like the first week, I'm like, this is the best coffee I've had in a while. It reminds me of the coffee from Chesterfield. And but then I noticed, like, okay, like as it aged, a couple weeks later, I was like, oh, it's like and so I started doing a ton of research and found out there's a big time marker on coffee. Like, once it's roasted, you got 24 hours really till you can drink it from the time you've roasted it for the flavors to fully develop. Once that process starts, it's like the sweet spot. You got about 14 days. And then after that, there's a significant amount of flavor loss. If you grind it, it's even faster than that, right? So that just started me on this big YouTube rabbit trail, right? So I'm down the bunny hole, and I'm looking into it, and I find out, like, oh, you can roast coffee in a freaking popcorn popper. So I'm at a thrift store trying to find one of those, and then you got to rewire the whole thing. So I'm Frankensteining it, and so and it's great. Like, it worked. I was like, this is really good coffee, but you can roast like 3 ounces at a time. So, like, enough for a cup or two. So here I am. Yeah, I drove my wife nuts. So here I am on our back porch. It's blowing pieces everywhere because there's these little skins that come off the beans called chaff when you're roasting. And I'm sitting there having to do batch after batch just to have enough for a couple days. And so that wound into me buying like, okay, well, if I buy rotisserie, and like, so and what if I so like just kept these iterations of a little bit larger roaster for home roasting, and then finally getting a commercial style roaster. And still, like, at that point, it was a hobby, though. It was just something I'm always looking for something that's just like, I was talking to my cousin about this morning. He owns multiple businesses, and I was doing something for him, and him and I were both talking about, like, sometimes you just need something. It's not necessarily mindless work, but it's mindless enough that it takes your mind off your real work.
Right.
That's just a distraction. And so that was the coffee. Of course, now it's become a business, but so that was what the coffee was for me. It was like, it allowed me to unplug from my day to day and focus on something different and just dive into it. So I did that. So it was about 3 or 4 years ago now. I started down that process, ended up with a commercial roaster, but still was using the commercial roaster just for like coffee for myself. I give bags to my family and like put fun names on them and make it up and have fun with it. Mill Pond Brewing and Millstott was really the launching point for me. He had a stout beer, wanted to put our coffee in it, and he said, "Hey, can you get it for me?" I was like, "Yeah, no problem." And so we worked. There's actually a coffee shop across the street. We worked with them. They cold brewed my coffee, and then he put it into the beer form. And then he started probing me. The owner, Brian Schubert, he's a great guy. His dad was an entrepreneur, owned Schubert Meat Market, and then he's been an entrepreneur and started Mill Pond Brewing. And he just said, "Hey, when are you going to get me bags of coffee to sell?" I was like, "That's really not where I'm going. Like, I just want to. It's just kind of my hobby. Like, just back off." And then he said, "Well, like, can you give me a couple bags to sell?" Like, we had this conversation several times. So finally I said, "Okay, we'll try it." And actually, Piasol was not the original name of the company. It was a different name that we went under and sold some bags there with him. And then when we got the roaster up here established, I wanted something that kind of tied into the Alton area. He's actually the only place down south selling it. Most of it's up here in the Alton area. So I wanted something kind of meaningful to the area. So we found the name, came up with it, and what an ugly bird. And I'm sorry if I offended some people there, but I was like looking at this thing, I'm like, I love the name. I don't know what to do for a logo.
Right, yeah.
And so we went through this process, kind of making something that resembled it enough. You knew what it was, but a little bit easier on the eyes. And so, yeah, it's been an adventure and growing. And yeah, sorry, I'm cutting you off.
That's all right. No, I was we're about out of time. The Piasol coffee is kind of in the initial stages. We'll have to get you back on and talk more about it as it continues to develop. But Tech River Consulting and on the IT side, definitely where you need to go to take care of any IT issues that you might have. So Keith, thanks so much for joining us on Business Over Brew.
Happy to.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, hopefully we get to come again.
Absolutely.